All right, Harry, as always, great to have you back. There's so much going on. Yes, including my hair being out of order. There's so much going on. Thank God I have you. And I want to begin by talking about some of the cabinet nominations that are currently being thrown out there and the controversies that they are now presenting. And I want to start off with Pete Hegseth, right? A staunch Trump ally with limited defense experience. Pete is expected to be nominated for Secretary of Defense. Now, critics, including military leaders, have all expressed concern over not only his divisive rhetoric, but also his complete and total lack of experience. What impact do you think that this could have in terms of his leadership on the United States defense strategy, as well as troop morale?
You know, Michael, it's really true. And he and many others seem chosen precisely for that. You have a series of nominees, now most recently Department of Education, who don't know their first thing about the agency and the building. It would be patently disqualifying, but it seems part of a strategy, either generally to sort of a demolition project for the government, or possibly to advance some people who are such a joke that the others who are only semi-jokes would be able to slide through. The military is a place that runs on, respect, obedience, shared duty, like the Department of Justice. And I can tell you, I'm focusing on Hespeth now, but I know the DOJ best, and the arrival of a guy like Matt Gaetz, who doesn't know the first thing about prosecuting and hardly the first thing about law, and comes to the job with an element of contempt and hostility for it, it's already, and he hasn't been confirmed and may not be, prompting a mass exodus. People are both shocked, horrified and distraught. They get up every day, and their whole point is the service and being able to say Michael Cohen for the United States. And that will just be undermined. And it's not simply that he doesn't know anything, but the sort of boot on the neck aspect of, we are gutting you, and that's what we're here to do, and you like it or lump it. I would think in the military, bigger, more discipline based, it would be even worse. Ultimately, there's some sense of kind of credibility and belief that tilts all the way down from leadership to make people be in a foxhole, and should not, that modern warfare is different, but it's so important, I think, to have confidence in your leadership when your leadership is telling you to put yourself in harm's way. And I think a joker like this, Fox News part-time host, couldn't possibly inspire that. You can only hope that the others in command do, but I think it would have a really deleterious effect on morale.
We have a very unusual circumstance that we as the American people have to sort of swallow. First and foremost, every president has the right to nominate his cabinet. Who else, if it's not going to be the president doing loyalists, is he expected to bring in? I mean, we can say the same thing whether it goes back to Reagan, to Bush Senior, Bush Jr., to Obama, to Trump, to Biden, to Trump now. Again, every president has the right to nominate the cabinet that they want to work with. I just don't understand, with all of the people that are out there, why all of these new names? Why all of these new faces? I'm with you on this. I just don't understand this choice. It doesn't, I get it, Pete Hegseth, he was a great ally to Trump. And that should give him some props. If you want to do something, make him an ambassador, right? Make him an ambassador. That's a nice ceremonial job that I'm sure he's more than competent to fulfill. but I don't understand. Secretary of Defense.
Yeah, and look, you lumped Trump together with Trump 2.0 with all these other presidents, but it's in fact one of them is not like the other. That is Trump 2.0, even different from Trump 1.0, because presidents, when it's time to fill out a cabinet, we thought this might happen in 2016. It didn't, but now it's far worse. Look to a professional cadre of people from their party, sure, and maybe sprinkle in one or two, loyalists, although those folks normally are targeted for the White House and the immediate staff, or like Stephen Miller, a loyalist. He's deputy chief of staff. So these guys, and moreover, even among loyalists, as you say, you can't just account for them on that basis. We have nominee after nominee: RFK Jr., Hespeth,
We're going to get to
all right, but all I'm
of them.
saying is they seem chosen with perversely. In other words, they are not only know nothings, but people who seem that they'll take their mandate to come in and undo the important work of each agency. And why would Trump want to, do that? So there's some kind of combined hostility toward the deep state, but I think also, this better, but this perennial Trump instinct, I don't think he's a deep thinker, but I think he thinks move forward, sow chaos. And before they can even deal with the last, keep going, sow more chaos, more chaos. So you have a whole series of nominees. There are Marco Rubio, I wouldn't put in that category, but really the majority would make anyone's head spin and are making the Senate's head spin, the Republican Senate's head spin. And just to finish up with Hespeth, though I'm happy to talk about whatever you like, he has a really ugly scandal in his past, and that's what background investigations and confirmations are for. And it would be a whole separate aberration, constitutional and cultural, to try to shove him through, same as Gaetz, without the regular background process. And so far, it looks like there's at least 5 or 6 Republicans, with enough steel in their spine to resist it. But I haven't put my finger to the core of it, Michael. But I don't agree, or I don't think it's like completely confusing. I think there's a method to the madness. It's meant to some combination of sticking it to the deep state, sowing chaos, and trying to assert power early on. Now, even to try to weaken the Republican Senate and shove it down their throats. And he's at his high water mark, I think, of power. It's only going to go down as he starts to govern. He's got this implicit threat that Elon Musk might fund a primary challenge, against others. So I think it's much more sort of sinister and cynical than gonzo, which is what any one of them might look like.
So, look, since we're going to talk about chaos, obviously the one that really is creating the most discussion and controversy is Matt Gaetz as the potential nominee for Attorney General, right? And this is a department that you know very well. I mean, this has sparked all forms of bipartisan criticism. It's not just Democrats that are saying, no, seriously, right? Axios was reporting concerns about not only his legal controversies, but something that you brought up before, his complete lack of prosecutorial experience. I mean, that's obviously essential. How do you think that this nomination will ultimately shape public distrust in the Department of Justice?
Well, if he's confirmed, I think possibly profoundly, Michael, because it begins from the top. He does have, in addition to everything else, I mean, he's famously the least liked member of the House. He's got this sort of sneering, callow quality. So just the AG is kind of public figure, I think he'll harm it. But the effect on the department will be profound. You'll lose a lot of good people. The effect on judges and juries in certain sections will be profound. You'll have judges not trusting the word of the Department of Justice, and that is the stock in trade. That's their capital. I mean, Trump has already done a lot to damage and make people think that what it really is an apolitical mission of devotion to the public good is sheer politics. This would advance it. There'll be chaos within the Department of Justice because no one will trust leadership, although you want to be obedient. There'll be certain, if you look at the sort of blueprint of Project 2025, there'll be certain initiatives pushed down from the fifth floor where the Attorney General is that will chafe greatly and we're talking about, Republican and Democrats, public servants on both sides who have seen him come and seen him go. But this is a different guy. He's in there. Not only he doesn't know crap, but he really, is so arrogant and wants to undo their basic mission. All that said, my best guess is he doesn't make it. But if he does, and especially if he does by a recess appointment and Trump manages to shove him down in a show of raw political power, I think the harm within the department and without the department, outside the department, but in terms of the perception of the department, will be profound. There hasn't been an attorney general. I kind of went back, because there's some presidents who think politically in appointing their attorney general. RFK is often pointed to. Yeah, he was close with Kennedy, but he had, he's actually considered to have been an excellent attorney general. I haven't seen anyone who approaches Gaetz's complete, imbecility as no experience, and then his you could call them foibles. I mean, his problems, Michael, are so profound that I think they kind of go to character. You're sitting in the fifth floor with him, and you're talking about a drug bust, and you're looking at a guy who almost certainly, at least there's a lot of evidence. It's like been doing Schedule 1 controlled substances in the last few years. You're doing, sex crimes, and you're looking at a guy who, if the accusations are right, has committed them themselves. The air kind of leaks out of the tires at that point. And, it's hard to really, get up, be proud of your job and do your job. And that is the gas that makes DOJ run. So it's a potential breakdown of a sort. There have been a couple AGs, sort of a little known dirty secret, who have basically done nothing and left it to the department deputy to kind of run things and just, nodded sagely. But this is way worse than that because he starts at the nothing. He brings all these, flaws to the job, and a sense of arrogance, contempt, and hostility. It's a fucking train wreck.
Yeah. I mean, talk about another train wreck. You then have Doug Collins, who's being floated for the VA, for the Veterans Secretary of the VA. I mean, they have proposals which I'm blown away that would reduce access to abortion counseling for veterans. I mean, tell me if you would, Harry, because this is like right up your alley. What legal and practical challenges do you think could arise from this type of a policy shift? I mean, It's not like veterans don't already have enough issues to contend with. This too?
Yeah, I mean, there's another guy. I called in an op-ed, Gaetz the anti-AG, and I think you got the anti-education department and the anti-VA chief, the anti-health and human services. First, there's going to be, they've already the masses of what Trump and Bannon would call the deep state are forming, and there's really big consortiums coming together, and it's going to be a time of total litigation on your thing in particular. There's it's been fought out before. On the one hand, the government has a right to express its antipathy for abortion to a certain extent, and you can shut off or require counseling for, people in government clinics. They probably can do it for veterans, but it's just a terrible disservice. We're going to get the anecdotes of the the young army person who was raped by a 3-star general and couldn't get, it's gonna look like he already is Trump. I gotta say, there's just no comparison. The most nasty and disrespectful to veterans of any president of all time, and you add with that of course most people in the army, or many people, I'll put it this way: his bone spur deferment, raises a lot of eyebrows. So, as a commander in chief, he's a somewhat of a feckless figure. But now, if you shut off, say, abortion counseling, there'll be legal challenges, but there'll be a lot of political
What legal
as well.
challenges,
I want to make
Yeah.
one related point. Project 2025 has about 3 or 4 different things that the DOJ should do. One of them, the Comstock Act, 19th century blue nose statute saying you can't send contraceptives through the mail. And they want to basically, it's never been, it's like a dead letter, except it's on the books. But this is going to be the way to attack the use of mifepristone, which and that 1,2 cocktail that is the agent for over half the pregnancy terminations in this country. That it is. I'll make a general comment that that it goes a little bit farther than you're asking, but I think it's true. I wonder what you think, which is this notion that the guy has some kind of mandate for cocked policies. I think is really all wet. When you polled people about, well, here's, is it good to, should immigrants have a path to citizenship? Oh, yeah. When you actually go policy by policy, people haven't signed on. Not to mention, it doesn't look like he'll have a even 50%. It's one of the closest elections in history. But I just think you cannot take his victory, and it was a victory, as some kind of endorsement of these crazy Project 2025 policies. But they're trying to do it, and I think that means trouble ahead for them.
So let me ask you this. Let's assume that you're right. Because Harry, I know Donald Trump better than all of these people combined. And I don't believe he wants to destroy America. I don't believe he wants to destroy American systems or processes that have been so successful for 249 years. But there is a group that is out there, and they are feeding him this. And I don't know why he's actually going along with it. To me, it makes no sense at all. I want to then throw in, like, for example, Kristi Noem, right? Kristi Noem, another person that's expected to lead the Department of Health, of DHS, of Homeland Security. And she plans to expedite these mass deportations. Now, my question to you is, it's going to create all forms of constitutional and humanitarian issues with such an aggressive agenda. Not only, of course, is this going to be challenged in the courts, and because he controls the courts, I guess he feels he'll be able to control the outcome. But on the world stage, it truly makes America look terrible. What's your opinion on this?
Yeah, so I think the level you've ended at is the most the world stage and our stage. It is just as an ugly a scandal as can be. And of course, he's talking about using the military, and there's all kinds, I'll get to them in a moment, all kinds of legal stuff, but I don't want to jump over what's going to be just the worst look. But this is it'll be like Tiananmen Square. Imagine military folks in boots going into homes and grabbing the immigrants and taking them out. Where the fuck do we live, and what happened to the United States of America? And I really think it will be a source of shame and consternation within individual communities. You're talking, you heard the rhetoric. Well, what about people who've been there forever? Well, what about their families? Well, their families, if they want to stay together, can go with them. I mean, we're talking about some hard-hearted, callous, and also inane, so many immigrants, including illegal immigrants, and illegal immigrants don't have a right to be in the country, but are so much do so much to make the economy go, and are such integral members of the community. So on a personal, on a media level, this is just designed to bring the United States, down to, below Hungary and Argentina. Argentina did this kind of crap in the 70s and 80s with the, coming with the militia coming in and grabbing people. And it's these images, we see this in the Middle East, right? They are indelible. And if he really tries this crap, he's going to harm the reputation of the United States on the world stage, perhaps irreparably. Okay, back to law, though. Yes, there's a legal system in place that the reason it is a practical problem to get people who go over the border without going through processes. Once you're here, you have certain rights. You don't have the same rights as any American, but you can't just, you'll be taken. You have a certain due process rights to hearings. You have a right to claim, at least, and have people adjudicate, hey, I should have asylum status. You have a legal system as befits any kind of evolved democracy. And there are definitely all kinds of, legal resources massing to fight this tooth and nail. So to really bring it home, your good friend who lives on the 8th floor of your building, whose mom came here illegally 40 years ago, and now they're a whole family. At some point, for Trump and Rome to succeed, the rubber has to, they have to come in. You remember maybe Elian Gonzalez. There has to be the point where the government asserts itself and is grabbing at people. This is the kind of thing you would think that should horrify the Trump faithful, that kind of show of government force. But the short answer, I think, Michael, is it gets to your first point about what's he doing, and is he trying to cloak himself in some kind of intellectual garb? This can't happen. It just can't happen. Practically, politically, legally, the notion that these, what he said in the campaign falsely, millions of killers, now in our country, you are not going to round people up as you did, say, in World War II and summarily kick them out of the country. They have rights. There will be mass protests. You can't turn us into China like that. And so
But
I think this will be,
something that,
just to finish the sentences, this will be the wall of of Trump 2.0. A lot of talk, but they won't be able to execute it, I think.
well, a lot of people say that as it relates to the unconstitutional remand of me back to Otisville, because I
Yeah.
refused to waive my First Amendment constitutional right and not publish a book. I'm a U.S. citizen. I'm born in this country. I have a
Yeah.
U.S. passport, right? If they can do it to me, imagine what they can do to somebody who is not a U.S. citizen, right? We're
I
talking
can
about one of
imagine,
these.
but the question is, what can they do to 1 million people who aren't U.S.? I agree. Any one person, if the president of the United States sets his sights against them, and you have felt this, it's a terrible abuse, and they can steamroll them, or at a minimum, break them financially. We may be seeing that with, say, Jack Smith or Letitia James. I'm saying this mass roundup is something that they won't be able to execute.
I'm not sure. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not sure that I agree with that.
Yeah, well, there you go.
And
Back to
we'll be waiting to
disagreement,
see.
finally. It's been a long time,
Finally is
Michael,
right.
but we got the
Sure. I
wager
don't.
down.
So I
Let's do
don't
a
agree. I
poll,
don't agree.
everybody. Poll in if and we'll have the wager, and we'll serve it up for.
I believe,
217 weeks from now, which is when Trump
yeah,
2.0 ends.
yeah, I believe that they will. And in fact, I
We'll
believe
see.
it's going to be
Yeah.
the very first bill that he's going to put forth.
Oh yeah,
Remember
they're going to
that in
try.
March of 2017,
Yep,
when I was
I
sitting
agree.
with him in the Oval Office, I'll never forget, and that was right after they were unsuccessful in the immigration bill, which was really nothing more than a Muslim ban. Um, he has better people now that have been working on this for 4 years. I believe that mass deportation is going to happen. And I believe, do I think he'll get 10 million people? No. Do I think that all of these folks that are in, let's say, hotels, whether it's here in New York, in California, he's going to be strategic where they go initially, because take California, for example. All right. 40% of California voted for Trump. 40. Imagine that. I think it's the highest ever, ever. And today's episode is actually brought to you by Ali. It's clean, fresh nutrition that your dog need in 5 flavors that they're going to absolutely flip over. I mean, you don't have to be a veterinary nutritionist to know that feeding your dog real whole foods with minimal processing, it's one of the best choices that you can make for their health. A perfectly portioned, whole fresh food diet has been proven to extend your pup's life by 2.5 years. You hear that? 2.5 years. And who doesn't want more time with their best friend? With absolutely no harmful fillers, no preservatives, Ali, it's made in U.S. kitchens with ingredients carefully sourced from trusted growers and producers around the world. Because the time between Ali's gentle cooking and your dog chowing down is minimal, they don't need preservatives to extend the shelf life. I mean, with 5 protein first recipes like fresh beef with sweet potatoes, fresh turkey with blueberries, or fresh lamb with cranberries, you might start thinking, damn, my dog eats better than I do. And you know what? That's probably true when it comes to Ali. So look, here's how it works. I told my neighbor, go out and you fill an Ali's 30-second quiz, and then they'll create a customized meal plan that's based on your pup's weight, the activity level, and other health information. Ali then crunches the numbers and they recommend the right recipes and daily portions for your precious pup based on hundreds of thousands of real dog results. And get a load of this. For the first timers, Ali will send out your pup's first box with 2 weeks worth of meals and a guide on how to gradually switch them over to their new diet. Ali offers 3 meal plans to choose from so that you can choose from between a full fresh plan, fresh topper plan, or a mixed plan with their freshly baked recipes for your special fur baby. I mean, they also have treats and supplements. I mean, you think that you're talking about a person. You're not. You're talking about your favorite animal. You're talking about your pup. Ali's biggest sale of the year is here. So listen to this one. For a limited time, you get 70% off, 70% off your first box, plus a free bowl and a storage container. So head right now to Ali.com, fill in your dog's details, and use code Cohen to get the lowest price of the year on a personalized meal plan. And this offer ends December 6th, so act now. Head over to Ali, that's OLLIE.com, and enter code Cohen to get 70% off your first box. Again, you can get 70% off your first box, plus the free bowl and storage container. So head to Ali, OLLIE.com, fill in your dog's details, and use code Cohen to get the lowest price of the year on the personalized meal plan for your pup. Go now. If he goes ahead, because there's a big issue in California with migrants and government resources and so on. So if they, thanks to Elon Musk, maybe he'll fund this thing too. They'll start purchasing a whole bunch of buses or renting a whole bunch of buses, showing up with the military in order to surround these hotels, go after the low-hanging fruit, the families that are there on the government dime, and he starts putting them onto buses. They put them onto cargo planes. They shoot them over the border to Mexico. They drop them off, and they say, "Go figure it out, but do not come back to America." All right, end of story.
All right. Can I respond
That's what I
quickly
think
though?
that he's. That's what I believe he's going to
look,
end
I
up
can
doing.
see a busload or two, but let me just add to it. First, by the way, you're totally right about California, but California is really three countries. People don't realize that. The East, the North. San Francisco is the midpoint of the state, and and down to San Diego. But you're going to have, this will be a great test of it, Michael. I agree. They may try a few busloads here or there. We have the state and the governor of the state. This, everywhere around in the federal government, he is now in control, and for at least 2 years. And there are, few cards to play, but one of them is state power. California is the fifth biggest economy in the world as a freestanding matter, and Gavin Newsom and the California government will be fighting him. So this will be, if this is where he chooses that first bus, it's going to be ugly. But look, I take your point. I can even see a bus or two. All I'm saying is what's been promised and what's in Stephen Miller's, fondest dreams. I don't see it, but that's, it's, we got a good wager here, and I shouldn't be light about it, because really, if this happens, I am so embarrassed for my country. How really, I think
Are you not embarrassed?
Like
Are you not embarrassed, Harry?
Square.
Are you not embarrassed the fact that they took a U.S. citizen, remanded him to prison because he wouldn't waive his First Amendment constitutional right with a fraudulent document that doesn't exist anywhere except created for him, and then to throw somebody back into solitary confinement and still not be able to get any form of justice, whether it was by the lower court, by the appellate court, or by the Supreme Court of the United States on a writ of certiorari, when it is a
and by the way, I think
fundamental
since we
right.
talked last, the court did deny the writ, right? Yeah, look,
they did.
Transgressions. I think it was a well, not just the district court felt it was a violation of First Amendment rights, and just for procedures and having to turn square corners, you couldn't get a remedy. Not great, but again, I just want to say this: the specter of a million, and these are, they've been so vilified. But everyone knows people within their community. You're right. The people who have just arrived in hotels are waiting for adjudication, don't have any connections to the community. They are low-hanging fruit. But we are talking about a lot of people with real connections, even a lifetime in the community, and children and grandchildren. That to me is, so nauseating.
Yeah, because they're talking about 10 million people. I say with certainty that there will be more than 1 million people in the first 6 months that they end up rounding up in the mass deportation, and Trump will go out onto the into the Rose Garden or behind the Lincoln desk, and he will say, "My fellow Americans, during my incredible campaign, where we were victorious by a landslide, I promised you that we were going to deal with immigration like never seen before." You can almost hear his voice in this. Like never seen or
I can almost
before.
hear his voice. Yeah. Yeah.
And what I did is I went ahead and, with the help of my incredible, incredible people, like Christy Nome,
you're killing me.
We went ahead and we rounded them all up.
No.
We rounded them all up and we got them the hell out of here. We're now going to save 200 billion, jillion, trillion, quadrillion, million, jillion dollars, more than anybody ever expected. And I told you that
Mexico and the world hate us, but who cares?
Right?
Yeah.
And so on. I'm telling you, you're going to
I hear you.
see,
I hear you.
you're going to see something there. I want to jump into another person here, right? Where you have like Gabbard. This is every one of these folks are mired in some sort of a controversy, right? I mean, Kristi Noem was shooting the family's puppy and the goat, and Tulsi Gabbard. She's being considered for the director of national intelligence, DNI. I mean, she has incredibly unorthodox views, including relationships to Russia and Syria. Her controversial remarks about them, for sure, have certainly, if not raised eyebrows, have raised real concerns. How do you think that her leadership aligns with traditional intelligence community priorities? Because again, I think that she is a very unusual pick, even for Donald.
Very, very poorly. And again, you're talking about a cadre staff who really see themselves or see their assets as putting their lives on the line to serve the United States in a dangerous world. And, on the top 5 dangers is Putin, and she is totally cozy with him. This raises a whole general point, Michael. So we have with Gaetz, we have with Hespeth the problems I've identified, that they don't know crap and they're hostile to the agency that they are inheriting. They also have these terrible skeletons in their closet, and those skeletons you have to worry about. And traditionally we would worry about them, because it's, a character issue, like John Tower, the last cabinet guy who was turned down because he was a total drunk, but B, for national security. So Gabbard doesn't have the scandals in her closet, but in some ways even worse. I don't think she would normally get through. We have, again, is there some whole strategy of having some sacrificial lambs because they're so bad, other people who are only merely bad waltz through? But in some ways, like Gaetz, he's denied all this stuff. You have many people, starting with Joel Greenberg, who really can blackmail him or China or our adversaries. But she's the most direct threat to the national security, and we are not fucking around here. What people, this is why Mar-a-Lago case was so serious. Some combination of her sympathies and her cavalier attitude to one of our 2, 3 at the least adversaries, who now, in the way the world is sort of organizing itself, are actually combining forces in some ways with China, with Iran. The kinds of loose things you can do, like when Trump gave up national security information to Russians in his office in 2017, they can kill people, and they can certainly undermine our national security. So this is a very bad spot, her job, to be taking risks and having kind of idiosyncratic people who seem to love the other side, or at least cozy up to them. This whole thing. I wrote again, in my email, my op-ed on Gaetz, he may be a joke, but this is no joke. Well, Tulsi Gabbard, really no joke here. About, anyone who has seen, I don't know what your clearance was like, Michael, but anyone who's seen classified information just understands, this is a wicked world with ingenious adversaries really looking to harm us. That's what was so head-spinning about Mar-a-Lago and documents being strewn about, when they're adversaries who may well have gotten in there. So this is, it's bad enough, say, to do weird policy with the Department of Education, which he otherwise wanted to abolish. In some ways, it's worse to do it with HHS, where people can die if Robert Kennedy, advances some of his crazy views. But it's really top of the charts in danger to have somebody, if she turns out, look, risks have to be managed conservatively. You're hearing about Hespeth and Gaetz. Well, they didn't bring charges. That's, in the criminal system, we give every break beyond a reasonable doubt. You can't play national security beyond a reasonable doubt. If you have some doubts, whatever, that person should be elsewhere in government if you want to reward them. So this is
I'm glad
just
you said
deeply
that.
irresponsible.
I'm just glad you said that. I'm not saying that Tulsi Gabbard isn't competent for certain functions. I just don't think she or Christine Nome or Doug Collins or Gates or Hegseth, are competent for the positions that they have accepted the nomination on. With all due respect, I took AP biology. It was fantastic in dissection. I'm dead serious. I come from a family of doctors. My mom, my dad. My dad's a surgeon. My mom was a surgical nurse. My brother-in-law is an orthopedic surgeon. My cousins are doctors. We're all doctors or lawyers.
Right.
I was
Cohens of
phenomenal
New
in
York.
biology.
Right.
It's right. Typical. I was fantastic in AP biology.
Okay.
I probably could do a tonsillectomy or even an appendectomy if necessary. I probably could do that. However, let me be clear. I wouldn't. And I don't think anybody should want to trust me to do it. All right? That's the whole problem. That's the problem. Why are they accepting roles that they know that they probably shouldn't? And I don't understand it, because there are other roles that each and every one of them, from Hegseth to Gates to Collins to Gabbard to Nome to Stefanik to Zeldin, there are roles that each one of them can and should accept. But taking on DNI and DHS and VA secretary and, attorney general and secretary of defense, it's outside really of their scope of capability. And why would anybody want to go into something? Why would they want to go someplace? Why would they want to go and take on a role that that you can't be successful in? And why would Donald want them in that position? Because ultimately, people will blame him. And I do know, knowing him again as well as I do, he wants to be a successful president. But I just don't see how these folks, with the chaos that will ensue, it's going to be like the first term where you had this one leaving after 2 months, this one after 4 months, this one after 6 months, this one fired for incompetence or because Donald didn't like them. This is what's going to happen every day. And today, Doug Collins just got shit canned by a Truth Social post, followed by an X post, a former Twitter post to, Tulsi Gabbard, blah, blah, blah. That's what's going to happen. And we're going to be so destabilized as a country, allowing our adversaries to take advantage of the downtime. That's my concern.
Yeah. So a few points. This is really, really trenchant on your part, Michael, and your, experience. Government experience, not surgical experience, shows through. So first, this is the number one point here is the Republican U.S. Senate just has to stand up. This is why you have advice and consent, and they have to resist letting him push things through with recess appointments, and they have to go through the full process. That's what they do and what they're there for, and they are, many of them at least, sophisticated enough to understand. And then, I don't want to be presumptuous to all your listeners, but if you've been in government, you gain a vantage point that's pretty eye-opening. We might not even know the damage that someone like Tulsi Gabbard does. That at all, it's a whole nother world out there, but it's really there and really dangerous and really wicked. I've thrown around Russia and China and Iran. What about non-state actors? It is really a world where the U.S. interests have to be protected day in, day out. And that's another problem with the loss of credibility on the world stage. People don't just genuflect to the United States. They have to respect them. This is why one of the ways in which Biden was such a successful president and Trump's figure starts already he starts with the contempt of I would say he certainly starts with the contempt of NATO and advanced democracies, and probably they're snickering in Beijing and Moscow because he's someone who I think can be manipulated through flattery or whatever. But anyway, it's easy. It's hard for people, regular citizens who haven't served in government, to take this all seriously. It's not in the news, really. Anyone who's been in government, from pro-Trump, anti-Trump, will just tell you, man, oh man, dangerous world. Do not put people in who can harm our national security. It harms our interests. It harms the lifeblood of our agents. It's some bad, bad, bad shit.
What do you think? You think that he'll get the recess appointments through, or do you think that the Senate will actually leverage its authority within which to prevent this? And, more online, like, are there any historical precedents that we could look at that would influence the strategy to prevent these recess appointments? Because he has every intention of doing it. One thing about Donald is Donald believes in winning. Doesn't matter what the game is. It doesn't matter what the issue is. I fucking nominated Matt Gaetz. I nominated Pete Hegseth, right? I told Doug Collins, you're going to be the secretary of the VA in Nome and this one and that one, right? His goal.
And this is the counterpoint, Michael. This is the counterpoint to your notion of, you don't think Trump wants to destroy the United States. That could well be so, but I do think he gets up and thinks about, in the most narrow, self-centered way, winning in a way that could destroy the United States. All right. On this, my best guess is that enough senators will stand up to this. By the way, of everything we've talked about, since it's sort of an umbrella question, is the most important current thing on the political landscape. Will he get away with this or not? Will he be able to short circuit the entire process that we have in place for all the things you and I are talking about to protect the interests of the United States through senatorial advice and consent, or will he be able to short circuit it? So two things. First, my best guess is enough Republicans will stand up to try to push back against it. But nevertheless, even if that happens, he may trade it for a sort of, shit through a goose confirmation process, even if they have the background investigations and as to some people. Second, on recess appointments, we could do a whole riff on it legally. I won't bore your listeners, although they can check out, I've done this on YouTube and our new Substack. It's if the Senate says no, I think he's got a hard road to hoe. If the Senate, and in terms of precedent, the short answer is no. Lots of recess appointments out there for the reasons you need them way back when you're in actual recess. This is a total contrivance to manufacture a recess, really, in order to subvert the constitutional scheme of advice and consent. That's without precedent and dangerous.
And tell everybody where this Substack is located. So,
because I believe, can I give that a couple minutes? Because
I want you to. I'm going to tell you why. Let me just tell you why. Because a lot of people talk about recess appointments. They throw the term around and they don't actually understand what it is. Yeah. In fact, if I can do and say one more thing here, because I really want your opinion on this. Right after the election, you know what the number one Googled question was? What is a tariff? What is a tariff? Was the number one Googled query. People are now doing the same with recess appointments, and to be able to get the full breakdown from the great Harry Litman, tell everybody where to go.
All right. First, for current purposes, you should just think of recess appointments as a way to get past background investigations where, Matt Gaetz, Hespeth, who has another scandal has to talk to FBI agents. If they lie, it's a felony. You fan out, you have everyone, all that information goes to the Senate. There's public hearings where Democrats can press on the nominee without revealing confidential information. So that's the whole process. So recess appointment for now, more complicated, but just think of it as a way to short circuit that whole process. So Michael, I've avoided doing Substack. We just do a lot of talking feds, but I realized with Trump 2.0, now, unlike the campaign where he would just scream from the rooftops, deport everyone, and Harris and Walz would give their counter. The way he's exercising government power now, even contemplated, and once he becomes the president, is pernicious and a threat to the Constitution, but in ways that are not obvious. You have to know something about recess appointments or something about how the DOJ works.
If you're ever worried about the safety of your home and your family, there's no better time to act. Right now, you can get 60% off a new Simply Safe security system. That's their best deal of the year. Simply Safe, it's the home security that I trust. I've been using it now for years, and I love the peace of mind that it brings, knowing that my home is protected 24/7. Now, my listeners can get 60% off today just by visiting simplysafe.com/mea culpa. Look, I'm always concerned. I have to be. I'm a public person, and so Simply Safe gives me that peace of mind. Simply Safe, it's a new way to protect your home that stops intruders before they break into your home. Old school systems, they only take action once someone is already inside your home. And you know what? That's too late. Simply Safe's Active Guard outdoor protection changes the game by preventing crime before it even happens. So if someone's lurking around or acting suspiciously, those agents see them in real time. They talk to them directly. They set off your spotlights, and they even call the police before that they had a chance to break in. Plus, there are no long-term contracts. There's no cancellation fees, and it's around $1 a day for all of this protection. Simply Safe is offering my listeners exclusive early access to their Black Friday sale. And this week only, you can get 60% off any new system with a select professional monitoring plan. This is their best offer of the year. So head right now to simplysafe.com/mea culpa. That's simplysafe.com/mea culpa. simplysafe.com/mea culpa. There's no safe like Simply Safe. It's nothing but the truth right here on the Mea Culpa podcast. And the truth is, healthy cholesterol levels are vital to your heart health, to metabolism, and blood sugar levels. My secret weapon for supporting healthy cholesterol level is Superberine Advanced Cholesterol Support. Superberine is an amazing plant-based supplement from nature, formulated with an ingredient that not only helps support your metabolism, but it helps support healthy cholesterol levels nearly 3 times. You hear what I just said? Nearly 3 times more effectively than your diet and exercise alone. You heard that right here. 3 times more effective. You hear me often talk about my health issues, and that's why I take Superberine Advanced Cholesterol Support. Not just to ensure that my cholesterol numbers stay low, but also for my metabolic health and functionality. It's just 1 capsule a day, and then I feel terrific, ready to meet the challenges. And you guys all know that mine are really tough. So listen, you get real results here. Super convenient. Just 1 easy to swallow capsule a day helps you do more to support healthy cholesterol levels, metabolic health, and blood sugar levels. It's unbelievable. Superberine's unique berberine, it's the only berberine shown to support healthy cholesterol levels nearly 3 times more effectively, again, than diet and exercise alone. It's clinically researched ingredients with better absorption and better results. And it features a clinically studied berberine that's shown to have nearly 10 times higher absorption than standard berberine. I mean, Italian olive fruit extract, it provides strong, really strong antioxidant properties that support your cardiovascular health, something that I deal with. And it's used by doctors and from the makers of Super Beets, the #1 doctor, pharmacist, and cardiologist recommended beet brand for heart health support. So give your cholesterol health advanced support with Super Berine. Go to superberine.com to get 15% off, 15% off, and save even more on bundles with promo code Cohen. That's Superberine. That's BERINE.com, code Cohen. Go now.
Or something about the immigration and deportation law, all those things. And I realized with all the things I was doing, I was not doing just this, a sort of 3-page, here's the deal written out about why this is a real threat to the Constitution, and putting in place my background, which, you know, I've been inside Main Justice, in the field, at the court, etc., and that kind of vantage point, I think, makes a difference. So we've just started this week Talking Feds Substack. I think you just go to Talking Feds Substack, and you know, today we'll post our third, I think, of just like, here it all is. Here's the chunk of 3 pages. When you read it, you'll know why this recess appointment is dangerous and what you should think about. You'll know how people are going to relate to Matt Gaetz. You'll know why the deportations are problematic. Basically, just trying to really analyze and sound the alarm by putting to service the close-up vantage point I've had in government to be able to really explain, here are the stakes, everyone. Here are the stakes with no background investigation, etc. So that's the Talking Feds Substack. We just started. It's the newest aspect of the franchise. I'm pretty excited about it.
And you should be, and everybody should go there. I want to jump into something that I know you have some knowledge based upon your law license and the positions that you have held. The Manhattan District Attorney's case, one that I was one of 41 subpoenaed non-party witnesses, they called to delay Trump's sentencing until after he leaves office, assuming he leaves office in 2029. And this has sparked debates over political interference in the judiciary. The question I really want to ask you are, what do you think of the potential long-term consequences of this decision on public trust in the legal system? And I think you're going to be shocked to find my comment onto it. I think they should dismiss the whole fucking case. I think Alvin Bragg took too long, despite the fact that the jurors, 12 of them, came back with 34 counts of guilt. Donald Trump has defied 1,000,000,000 to 1 odds and recaptured the presidency of the United States of America. I'm a guy who has, believe it or not, a lot of respect for the institution of government, despite the fact I have my disdain for people like Merrick Garland, who I think is a terrible attorney general.
Did you have to put that in here?
You know, are we
really going to have to go to battle on this?
Yes, my
Standing
disdain
objection.
for Bill Barr.
Go ahead.
My disdain for Bill Barr as Attorney General, right? I believe, and I truly believe, that the institution, that the office of the President of the United States has to be paramount. I believe that to have a president who has 34 guilty counts against him demeans him in the eyes of our adversaries and our allies. And in 2029, I want you just to imagine what Trump will be doing and thinking every day going forward from January 20th of 2025 through January of 2029. Every single day will be concentrating on how to destroy the Manhattan DA's office and everybody that was involved. I don't see him
Whereas
ever
you think
being
if the
held
case goes
accountable.
away, he won't. But look, I take your point. I have said for over a year, yes, I think if push comes to shove here and he defies those 1,000,000,000 odds, which he really has, he is routed, this 4 years after the guy resisted the peaceful transfer of power, that you cannot encumber a sitting president. You can't try to put him in jail. You can't execute sentence. But and I agree with that. But the question here, I think it hasn't been decided yet. They haven't folded up their tent. What they're saying is decide his motion to dismiss first. If you do that, all right, we have to go home anyway. Now, if you don't, I do think, Michael, he's not a law-free zone. He's got, for instance, these, civil cases and debts against him. We know from Clinton v. Jones that the court said, a president can handle both. So I don't think it's willy-nilly. You can wipe out history. And that's sort of the point about, the 34 counts happened and a jury did decide. And Bragg made an interesting argument in his papers to the court saying, this isn't like putting him through a trial. It's now just a sentencing date. So I don't see that the fact of hearing sentence would somehow be this huge inconvenience that would interfere with all the presidential duties. It has to be something like your argument, just that it's out there hovering. And he said something like this, how can he deal fairly with New York when he knows they've won but the answer is he's got a lot of baggage in the legal system, even if the criminal cases go away. And I don't think it should be an automatic wipe the slate clean, nothing ever happens. So yes, I think the question is, will he be able, in an unencumbered, full-minded way, be able to execute the office of the presidency and still have received a sentence or a fine or whatever that starts in 2029. That's sort of a factual question, but I think the tie goes to having the justice system, go through its normal role as it does in the civil context. And we know that from the Clinton case, rather than simply, letting any possible theoretical resentment or inconvenience or whatever undo a pretty important thing. You're right. In a lot of ways, it was small beer, the case, as other ones go. But we've been through a lot, 34 convictions, etc. It's not a trivial thing to just as he's going to now do. It's no trivial thing there either. But he's going to be able to accomplish it in the federal cases, just like erase history almost. That's really problematic. But there's no way around it.
Okay, so here's the question then.
Okay,
what do you think that Judge Merchan is going to do? We already know that Trump's counsel has requested, at minimum, suspending this sentencing until 2029. And the DA, Alvin Bragg, has gone along with it. See, again, I think that Alvin Bragg
he hasn't quite gone along with it. He says, do the motion to dismiss first, and we'll talk. But go ahead.
And then we'll figure out what will happen with dismissing the case in its entirety. How do you think that Judge Merchan is going to rule on this? And my first question I want to ask you in that regard is, could it just merely be a financial fine without the imposition of jail time or anything like that? Because if that's so, you hit him with $1 million fine. Not that's a lot for him, or Elon Musk certainly for sure, but you hit him with $1 million fine, and the 34 criminal counts remains. If they dismiss it, Donald Trump is not a felon. He's no longer on the books, despite that he has a federal ID number already. That goes away. The only time that it ultimately you become a felon is after sentencing.
Yeah. You and I were both in that courtroom, and he seemed to be running a tight ship, but I have to say he's blinked twice. And, the whole judicial system seems to be blinking. The Georgia Court of Appeal just took the Fonnie Willis case off calendar with no further notice. And he let the sentencing go, and then he let this one go. So I wouldn't want, I don't feel confident about predicting, but I think your notion, Michael, would fit with with Mayor Chun's being both saying things have happened and there are consequences, but also, getting rid of what's going to be a headache and he knows will be appealed all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court and the like. So I could see his doing something exactly like that. Let's proceed to sentencing. It's a fine, or it's something that Trump can be satisfied with, but still he has asserted some presence of the law. Now, the big question to me, normally you might not get a prison sentence in these cases, but you would get probation. And probation, as you know, is no, walk on the beach. It's real deprivations of liberty. And even if it didn't start until 2029, that would be part of a real sentence. It's almost like a little bit of a joke if there's not even probation. And yet I'm honestly, I don't shy away from predicting. It's kind of fun. But here I felt the same way about the election. I'm not sure, but I think something like what you said, Michael, that where he doesn't say exactly because he was elected, the whole thing goes away. What legal principle is that? But he treats it gently enough that maybe, in fact, it does, sort of wither on the vine.
Yeah. Well, Harry, thank you for your wisdom. Thank you for your predictions. Thank you for your friendship.
Yeah.
We're all just trying to make sense of this from
a little more. We're trying to push back as we can on real constitutional aberrations. And some of this is constitutionally aberrant.
And then to turn around and to try to figure out what's the ultimate effect going to be on America's democratic republic. And these are the things that obviously the rule of law is in jeopardy here. And so is our country. And I'm blown
and
away.
Not just lie, if it's such a deep social norm. You don't have military do domestic law enforcement. I mean, we could be taking a giant step. We really honestly could be toward Hungary or Argentina. These things happen to democracies, and Trump is just the person to do it.
Yep. Well, Harry, thank you again for joining me. Definitely going to have you back in order to see whose prediction turned out to be right versus wrong.
Yeah.
So thank you again, Harry.